Nose Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a result of this year's back-in-debt budget that cut all funding to the Safe Communities Innovation Fund, Servants Anonymous has been desperately trying to find sustainable funding for their safe house. For the past 3 years, the safe house has provided women and children the support necessary to exit the violence of prostitution, human trafficking, and sexual exploitation. Last week, the Minister of Human Services indicated to me that his ministry will be finding a way to sustain the funding for the safe house due to the success of the program. Can the Minister tell this House when Servants Anonymous can expect your call?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What the honourable member was doing last week was raising questions and talking about budget cuts, which was entirely inaccurate. What actually happened with respect to that particular program and a number of others that were funded under SAFECOM is that they knew that their budgets, that their grants were 1, 2, or 3-year grants, and they were expiring. And they were working on a transition plan to sustainability. Our department is working on those transition plans with respect to those projects which need to be continued to sustain, those ones that were successful, and we'll continue to do that.
Honourable Member.
Cut is a cut is a cut, Minister. Given that other pilot programs under the Safe Communities Innovation Fund are beginning to feel the heat as a result of this government's misguided priorities, and given that just last week the government insisted that funding had dried up for all SCIF programs, can the Minister outline what other frontline services that were going to be cut last week are now deemed funding this week?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member continues to intentionally change the facts. The facts are that SCIP projects were funded with specific grants for 1, 2, or 3 years. Those grants expired. They weren't renewable, they weren't ongoing, they were term certain. And during that period of time, the projects were to determine, first of all, whether they achieved results, and then secondly, how they were going to be sustainable. That discussion about how they were going to be sustainable is a discussion which they needed to and need to engage with the appropriate department so that appropriate programs can go forward. It's not a budget cut, it's a grant that expired.
Honourable Member.
Given that the government has indicated it will backtrack on the decision to cancel funding for Servants Anonymous and apparently some other very deserving programs, will the government now overturn its stubborn decision to close the Michener Centre? Or will it continue to bulldoze ahead with its pattern of miscommunication around cuts to the frontline services that matter most to vulnerable Albertans?
Mr. Speaker, let's set the record straight here. The honourable member stands and complains about cuts, despite the fact that they propose that we cut $2 billion in the budget. But nonetheless, our PDD budget wasn't cut; it's increased in this year's budget. The only person who has proposed a cut in the PDD budget is by way of amendment, which we'll vote on tonight, by that honourable member, Mr. Speaker.